name is Hannah Turner, and this is AEP 803 Module 1, Action Research. Like I said, my name is Hannah Turner. I'm married to my husband, Blake. We've been married for almost 3 years, coming up on Wednesday. We don't have any kids. We have 2 cats, Wally and Gracie, and I have 4 nephews. 2 of them have the same name. They are not related to each other, but they are both related to me. My professional life, I went to Ouachita Baptist University. I graduated in 2017, and I have a BA in middle school education. After I graduated, I taught 6th grade math in Malvern, Arkansas for 2 years. And then after my brother's son was born, we moved back to Yates Center, where I teach 6th through 8th grade math. I'm also the girls basketball coach for the middle school. And for the past 2 years, I have been on the building leadership and district leadership team. And my husband also teaches here. We share a lot of the same students. So my philosophy of education, these 2 quotes in particular really speak to me, and I really try to incorporate them into my own practice. Kids don't learn from someone they don't like, and no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. I believe those 2 are especially important when dealing with middle school students. They don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care about them. And I have found that to be especially true in the 4 years that I've taught. I also believe that any student can learn if they are given the right tools. So I like to change up what I do every once in a while to make sure that everyone can have a chance to be successful in my room. So on to today's topic, and that is action research. And what is the purpose of action research? It is to gain a better understanding of the dynamic nature of classroom life and possibly bring about change. It is to experiment in the classroom, to try new things and to see if those strategies work. And the goal of improving understanding and practice. So in short, the purpose of action research is to get better at what we do. And when we get better, the students can also get better. The better the teacher, the better it is for students. The 4 main types of action research, I collected all this information from Cilliers. The first is technical action research. That is to test a specific intervention based on existing theories. The researcher identifies the problem and determines the intervention, and then the teacher facilitates that intervention. The teacher does not come up with the issue or the intervention themselves. The researcher does it. It is initiated by experts in the field, and because of this, it seems to be more efficient and more effective. Next is mutual collaborative action research. Teacher and researcher identify a problem and causes, and then they determine interventions together. So it's more teacher-led. It's not totally teacher-led, but it's more. Teachers more involved in this action research. And there's a mutual understanding of the problem and solution. They work together. Next is the enhancement approach action research method. That is to encourage closeness between actual classroom issues with the theories used to solve them, and it assists teachers in identifying fundamental problems by raising collective consciousness. That is with a group of teachers. So if you are having some behavioral management issues, you would look into some theories that are designed to help you solve those issues. And your practice is informed by theory. It's not your gut. You are going with an established education theory to help you solve these issues that you're having in your classroom. Next is participatory action research. The goal is positive social change. It is collective and self-reflective. So if you are doing this, you are doing it with a group of teachers, maybe your whole school or just maybe your pod, but it is a group. And together as a group, you decide that you are going to bring about some sort of social change. Maybe make your classrooms more inclusive, maybe make them more comfortable, something of that nature. And while it is a group effort to decide how you're going to do it, it's very much reliant on your own personal self-reflection. Like, what can I do in particular to make this happen? And action is a reality. It's not an experiment to see if it works. You just do it. It is what it is. So what is the goal of action research? This is very similar to the purposes of action research. The goal of action research is to learn and grow, create a culture of inquiry and teacher collaboration, to ask questions and to work together to solve them, experience problem solving and model it for the students. This one I think is extremely important. We are not perfect. We're going to have issues in our classrooms, and we need to show our students that we are able to solve the problems that come up. Help teachers improve classroom practice. I think that is goal number one. We need to support development of staff. Everyone is getting better. We need to try new classroom strategies and to determine what works and what does not work. What does not work is just as important as figuring out what does work. So the main steps in action research, some of the resources kind of delved in a little bit deeper, but these are the 4 basic steps that I saw. The first is to identify a problem or ask a question that you are curious about. Next is to determine a strategy and make a plan. And both of these things happen before you teach. And then as you are teaching, you are gathering data. Data could be actual like numbers, percentages, or it could be just student observations. How did students feel, or maybe some feedback from the students. And then finally, you should draw conclusions and report your results. Does it work? Does it not? Should I continue? Should I change something? And then if you decide to change something, then you are going back to step number 2, determine a strategy, make a plan, and trying again. Action research is meant to be reoccurring. You're meant to be doing it over and over again. So the difference between action research and traditional research. In action research, the researcher and facilitator are more often than not one and the same, and that would be the teacher. The teacher is coming up with a question, and they are the one testing out that question, testing out the data. It solves problems in your room. It's very specific to that teacher and to that classroom. Not every single classroom is the same, just like how not every teacher is the same, not every student is the same, not every issue in the classroom is the same. Something that works in my room probably will not work or might not work in my neighbor's room. It could be different. Action research is usually determined by the teacher. Sometimes it can be determined by a principal or an expert, but usually it's the teacher. And there's no control group. There's no group of students that don't get the benefits of this action research. Every student gets it tested out on them. In traditional research, it's often removed from the realities of a classroom. We're usually testing out a theory instead of seeing an issue that we're seeing every day and trying to solve that issue. It's more theory-based. Researchers usually aren't teachers. They may have been in the past, but currently they're educational researchers. They're not teachers. And we use control groups in traditional research, and we're testing theories and not solving problems in traditional research. So the common problems in action research. Individual action research doesn't make it outside of the classroom. If a teacher is trying to solve a problem in their room, they often don't report it. School-wide action research can tend to be disorganized because there's a lot of different ideas floating around, and because of all these different ideas floating around, that can result in a lot of conflicts or misunderstandings among teachers. Someone might think we need to do this one way, someone else might think another, but ultimately, school-wide action research does tend to lend itself to more collaboration. There might be some disorganization and misunderstandings at first, but usually those issues iron themselves out. And you also should be mindful of any ethical dilemmas that arise. Is the questions that you're trying to answer, is that ethical? Are you trying to solve a problem in an ethical way? Are you leaving anyone out? Are you trying to solve a problem that really isn't a problem? You need to be just mindful of that, because there might be some ethical dilemmas that come up during your research. So how can action research improve my practice? This is actually something that I like to do every summer. I just had no idea that there was a name to it. I always like to find some sort of book or some sort of new strategy to try during the summer to prepare for the next year. Action research is specifically designed to improve. Because I'm such a young teacher, I've only taught for 4 years now, I'm still trying to iron out what works the best and what doesn't. And if I can improve myself, then who benefits from that? The students, right? I want to make sure that my classroom is engaging. I teach math. It's a pretty boring subject. A lot of students hate it. So I always try to find things that are more engaging but also very much content focused. I don't want to just play games all the time if they're not going to learn. So I always try to find things that are just more engaging. I'm currently studying something called the grid method, which is a way to organize your content into bite-sized chunks so that students can move through them at their own pace. And I'm hoping that that will increase my engagement because I had a lot of students that just didn't turn in their work. They got behind really easily. And so I'm hoping that this grid method can solve that issue for me, that I won't have a lot of students that are just getting so far behind and there's just no way that they can catch up. So my critique of action research, I think it's one of the best parts of teaching. I really look forward to doing it every summer. I wish that I should probably spend a bit more time during the school year doing it. But the action research that I personally do is individual teacher action research. I hardly ever reach out to other teachers or to my school for help. It's just has to do with my classroom. And I struggle with implementation and data collection. I really want to try new things, but I'm always afraid that it's going to be a disaster and that it's going to be disorganized in my room and it's going to create just a big mess in my room. And as far as data collection goes, almost all my conclusions are drawn from student observations in my gut. I don't have any hard numbers that say this percentage of students consistently missed turning in their assignments, or these are the number of redirections I had to do every day. I don't have hard numbers. I just look at my students and see that they have checked out or they are just behind, and I can just see it on their face. So this coming year, that's something that I would like to work on, is collecting numbers and tracking the data to see if the grid method really does work in my classroom. Course learning outcome number 1.2, this specifically describes the action research process. It talks about designing, implementation, and evaluating processes that help all students and adults. And that's something that is cool about action research. Not only does it help students, but it helps everyone else too, especially when you talk about your research. And then next, there's always something new with technology-wise. I believe that most action research, especially of today, has to do with technology. This past year, a lot of my colleagues in my school district tested out Google Classroom for the first time. So that was action research that they were doing, and they may have not even known it. Seesaw, we tried out something new called IXL. So that was action research that we were doing in my own classroom with technology. It's important to experiment with it and to determine if it's worth it, because technology can get expensive. CLO 4.2 and 4.3 have to do with participatory action research. The goal is social change or more an equitable environment, making sure that your environment in your classroom is one where everyone feels welcome and everyone can learn. And then finally, course learning outcome has to do with data collection. Are you collecting the data to back up your findings, which is not something that I particularly am strong at, and I need to work on that. The standard correlation. The course learning outcomes of this assignment all state that as principals, we are to lead improvement processes, design, develop, implement, and evaluate something, could be anything, to improve the learning experience for all students and adults. These words together all describe the main steps in conducting action research. I can then conclude that action research is not just for teachers, but for principals as well. In this assignment, I was able to examine the purpose and goals of action research, the benefits, and how to go about it. Relevant. I'm in the middle of action research right now for my own classroom, though I had no idea that action research was what I am doing is called. I had never seen a defined process for action research, and now that I have a better understanding how to make my research more effective or more telling, not necessarily more successful, but I have a better grasp on what works and what doesn't work. My reflection, if I make a commitment as a teacher to engage in action research over the summers in preparation for the upcoming school year, and I always do it alone, as a principal, I would want my teachers to engage in action research together. Even if there is only one teacher who wants to try something specific, I would want that teacher to be prepared to share their findings with colleagues. And in that sharing process, that's how we learn from each other. It's very important that we collaborate, because that collaboration is just it's a free way to have professional development and learn from each other. While I don't want to force teachers to engage in action research or choose their topics for them, I would make it clear that good teachers are always looking to improve their practice. We never ever want to be stagnant. We always want to improve. There's always room for improvement. Thank you for listening, and these are my references.